Worms.
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 Worm.
Worms.
Worm.
Worms. 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 Worms.
I know. You can be a wriggly worm. Look, I'm a butterfly.
What's up, guys, worms, people, everyone on the podcast? It's been a while since I've done the last one. This is episode 11. Thank you, Krista, for joining on this one. I mean, this is another worm episode. So if you don't like worms, literally turn this one off because this is going to be that episode. Krista, thank you for joining. Thank you for having coffee.
Hi, thank you.
You're
Cheers.
another fan from afar. Your stuff is amazing. Your Insta, your freaking artwork is incredible. So like before we hop into some of the stuff that I'm kind of fanning about, why don't you kind of introduce yourself to everybody who's listening, your name, kind of where you're from, and, let's take it from there.
So I'm Krista. I'm 30. I'm from Connecticut. Fine artist, and that's about it. I got a little worm character and had him for about 10 years, but the past couple of years I've been taking him a little more seriously, and I'm just trying to go on the worm tour 2020 and spread the worms everywhere.
I got the stickers in the mail. I wish I would have brought them with me because I'm not at my house right now, but we did get them in the mail, and I put them all across like the countertop, and my wife was like, "Where did you get these?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding? Like, are you surprised right now?" There's the Worm Tour 2020 ones were awesome.
Thanks.
So tell me, I mean, you said, did you go to art school? Like, is this something that you actually went to school for? Tell me about that. That's interesting.
So after high school, I graduated in 2007. I did 3 years in community college, just took it nice and slow.
Mm-hmm.
And then I transferred to Lime Academy, College of Fine Arts, just a really small, traditional classical art school. And like now that I graduated there in 2013, so it's been 7 years, still paying the student loans.
Mm-hmm.
I really respect and appreciate my education, but at this point, I kind of wish I would have went a different path with just making art, living life.
Yep.
Because I feel like I could have came to the same conclusion without school, but
that's a whole nother episode. That could be its own episode in itself, because believe me, I'm a very opinionated person, and I have a whole tangent that I go on student debt, because the story is the same all across the board. You're not the only person that's feeling that, and it's like, the stories that I hear are nightmare stories. And I've always been a big kind of anti-school person. And in the beginning, it was because I was just a terrible student. And I'm like, screw this. I'm bad at this. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, forget your A's. They mean nothing. But I mean, if I had to go back, right? Like, what kind of student were you growing up? Were you always artsy? Were you just doodling on the walls? Or was this something that kind of developed later on?
I always enjoyed making art, and in the summer, my mom would always make us do some kind of class or camp, and I would always just do the art stuff.
Nice.
So I really wasn't into sports. I was an okay student. High school kind of messed up, and then realized towards the end, okay, I need to go to community college and figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. So I kind of had to relearn all of high school and community college, and then set more in my direction towards the arts. But
I did the same. I mean, I went to Brookdale Community College, and it felt like high school 2.0. I had way too much fun in high school. So when I went to Brookdale, which was like a 2.5 year thing before I went to Rutgers, it was cool. To be honest with you, school for me was definitely a social aspect. I've always been, it's funny now that I'm interviewing artists and people who are actually artistic. I always wanted to be that. I wanted to have, how you have that worm. I always wanted that. Mine was this Afro guy that I used to draw and tag everywhere throughout my high school.
Back.
And I mean, there's already t-shirts. I was trying to do it all. I had sweatshirts, I had stencils. I wanted to be artsy so bad. And I was just, there's two things that I'm just not good at. It's drawing and singing. I just don't have the chops for it, but it's okay because I can talk, which is helpful. So that's why I'm seriously just naturally curious to what's in the mind of people like that, because the last episode that I talked about worms was with my buddy Steve, and we've been talking about worms since we were 14 years old, more as a sense of instead of saying hey bro, we say hey worm. And we have a whole story about how that started. And guys, check out episode 9 if you want to check out what worm really means to me. this one's more about Krista than it is about me one. So I don't want to take off the whole script here. But so I mean, dude, walk me through. So the character right now is the worm. Tell me about why, where, when did it happen? Were you literally just like drawing on a piece of paper one day? I mean, because the first one I saw that caught my eye was the tequila bottle going like this and the worm was going like
Yeah.
that. And I'm just like, it reminded me of like a Rick and Morty, which instantly made me love it. But I'm wondering, like, what are your influences on it? How did you come about? What's the story of the worm so we can get everybody into it?
So it was probably like 10 years ago, just for a project in class. I recently posted like the first one, but there was a few sketches, and
Oh,
I'm
nice.
guessing
That's the first one?
one of the first
One of the
ones.
first ones.
So it was just like, my name's Krista, so trying to say my name but differently, that says duh.
Nice.
But basically, or my name is Krista Stanowitz, but then I put it together, Chris Stanowitz. I'm not sure how these
Love
are
it.
holding.
Yeah, I can see it perfectly.
So I was just trying to do super simple little character to convey my name. And then in my early 20s, it was just like a bathroom doodle I would do when I was drunk, like kind of scribble. It'd be so shitty. And then in the small town that I was living in, New London, other people would kind of make like imposter worms or try and like copy it, kind of like poke fun at me, but like I didn't know who they were, so I was taking it super personal. So I felt like it was like the worm wars for a little bit.
Nice, the worm wars.
Yeah, and then just, I don't know, throughout the years, then I started taking it a little more seriously now that I'm doing like the screen printing and just really trying to make it like a character, a brand, spread
Nice.
it, see what happens.
The store is awesome. I have a T-shirt that I wear pretty often. I mean,
Thanks.
it's really cool. It really is. Like everybody, I'm gonna link it down here too, so everybody can check out and support the store. But so tell me more about this drawing on the walls, like just doodling. So one of the things that I did in my college was I had my own worm too, right? And it doesn't look like yours. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit more cartoony, I guess. And I would just draw it randomly in classrooms. So like one of the things that I love to do was like, okay, there'd be a big like what are they called, chalkboard, and then I would
Yeah.
have the worm kind of coming out of a crack. I would create a crack, and then I would have the worm kind of coming out of the crack in the classroom. So when people would walk in, they'd be like, "What the hell is that?" Like, were you drawing those sort of scenes, or was it just literally like Krista Instagram handle and then like the worm?
So like in school, like in like art school, I never really like told anyone about my worm or anything. That was just like my secret, fun, silly project.
Yeah.
And then I had my fine art paintings. But now at this point, it's been so many years that like it's just completely, like I haven't done too many real paintings. It's mostly just been worm related things. I just get joy out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, tell me more, right? Like let's spend a little bit more time on this one. Like I really want to hear kind of what thought process goes into what you're trying to like, is the worm a metaphor? Is it just this creature that you're trying to create a cartoon character like a Mickey Mouse and then eventually create some sort of theme park around it? I guess what's the genius behind what, or the art behind what you're doing?
Worm can be anything. It could be girl, guy. It's just so like worm relates to being a party animal. I guess that's how they would identify. However, I have been getting a lot of commission work for people that are getting sober. So, and I completely support that, like no matter what. So I'm like, worm doesn't have to be like trashed all the time, but it's just fun. It's silly. I feel like it helps catch your attention.
Mhm.
The wild worm, but worm can be anything. That's kind of why I like it.
I love it. I mean, I subscribe to that 100%. That's kind of like my whole thing about worms too. It's like I got a buddy who was super into worms and who was super into using them and just understanding kind of what they do and how they eat the dirt, and then their poop ends up becoming just the soil, which is a whole metaphor for my life, like life in general, right? I mean, I just apply it to so many different things, and then I took that and just started saying it to everybody because it's a compliment. I think that worm to me is a positive thing. right? It's actually saying, you know, even when somebody's going through a tough situation, they're coming out on the other side. That to me, something more beautiful comes out of that, right? Maybe you don't understand it at the time. That for me is kind of like the worm. And then also, like you said, the worm is not a boy, the worm is not a girl. For me, the worm is kind of like a unifier, right? It's this universal thing that is kind of the foundation of the earth. I mean, I get deep, you know, and don't get me started because I will. But I love that. It's cool to meet, like, just point blank, like this podcast can end right now. It's just cool to meet somebody else who's into it, because I really thought that, like, it was like me and my buddy Steve were the only people who ever like considered drawing worms or thought of worms, and everybody else was just thought we were weird. Like, do your friends ever be like, dude, like, what's with the worm stuff? Like, how do you answer that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
However, I am gonna say if you put a real worm in front of me,
Yeah.
I probably will scream. Like, I won't touch them. Bugs and like worms like just are not on the top of the list of things I want to touch or really see.
Yeah.
But I love my character. It's cuter than a
Yeah.
real worm. I am gonna admit that. I've never been fishing and I don't think I could ever hook a worm. Like, that's my goal this summer. Go fishing. Have
Really?
someone else bait the hook. Someone else touch the fish.
Oh my God. Fishing's fun. I mean, you just get on the boat, go deep sea, crack a few beers, and
Yeah, I just wanna
okay.
have a couple beers and catch something and then throw it back in.
Yeah.
I'll just throw it back in.
We actually talked about that. My wife, first off, our au pair actually was saying that one of her really good friends, our au pair's from Ecuador. She came here. She's been with us for 2 years. And one of her really good friends, also from Ecuador, is living in Seattle right now with another family being in their au pair. And she wants to stay in the US after her thing. So they're like trying to like be matchmaker. So there was one guy that they set her up with, and they went fishing on the first date. And she's like, they literally sat out in the water for like hours and hours. They caught nothing, and they came back, and the bill was like $400. And then she was just like, that was the first date. And my wife was like, my wife can't get on a boat because she gets motion sickness.
Oh.
She can't catch the fish because she's like, I can't eat something that I caught and I've seen alive. Like, I just can't,
Yeah.
I can't get over that mentality. I don't know. That's not an issue for me, but I could see why people wouldn't like to do that.
Yeah, I just want to catch one and like set it free.
Yeah.
Let it live its best life. And whatever fish I eat at the restaurant, that's different. That's
There you go. Yeah.
fish name and see its face.
Yeah, you don't want to be part of that life cycle. I get it. I guess, I mean, we're even going in summer. Is that the only goal you have for summer right now? Go fishing, or are you thinking about creating?
I just want to paint a bunch of walls. So like just always looking for places to practice painting. And
I see a lot of your stuff, a lot of your content, right? Let's talk about that a little bit. I see a lot of it. It seems like a lot of cool, like, street art, right? And I see, is that your partner also helping you with the paintings and stuff like that? Or are you doing that solo?
Mostly friends and solo. Yeah.
That's
like
cool.
I always have like my paid commission projects and then like my fun spray paint worm related stuff. So I have to have a balance. Like sometimes I feel bad that I'm putting off like real projects, but sometimes it's like, oh, it's a nice day and I've been working all week. I just want to go out and paint some worms.
I love that. I've
like,
never heard anybody say that, but for some reason that just feels so nice.
Yeah. I'm 30 years old and that's what I look forward to, a day off to go find a band paint.
I mean, I'm 33. How do you look at 30? Because I mean, me, I'm like, I'm going to live till 120. So 33 is like, I'm not even at the national anthem of my life yet. But how do you look at 30? Is it the exact opposite?
No, I'm growing my mindset more towards that.
Yeah.
But a little bit like, oh my God, what did I do in the past 10 years? What have I been doing? I haven't done enough. So it makes me think like there's so much I need and want to do. Like,
yeah, 100%. And I think
so
30 is the best time for, like, you know, you spend a lot of your time building your skills in your, you know, teens and 20s, and you're kind of execution mode in your 30s. And there's a little bit of pressure. I feel that too, right? Especially it's like, oh my God, I went down this route. I'm in cybersecurity, right? So I'm kind of a nerd. And it's like, am I just going to be a cybersecurity guy for the rest of my life, or is there something bigger? And I think just asking yourself that question opens big can. Sorry, there's bugs, and I'm not used to bugs. It opens a whole another can of just everything. I'm not going to put worms in there because that's a pun. I couldn't do that.
You
Just
should have.
the comment section just would have went on fire. But it's crazy. I mean, but I don't know. I find myself doing other things, right? I try to help use what I've learned and help other kids that, not everybody looks like me in the cybersecurity industry. So I kind of use that as a way to help spread the message and hopefully get more people in the space that look like me so that we can have more of us and more perspective on a different side. But I mean, I love it, right? I'm a big traveler, coffee lover, and now I have a podcast where I talk to people who talk about worms. So like life is
Love it.
pretty good at 33,
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, are you starting to experiment and dip into other things? I know you do commission stuff, you do your own stuff, but I mean, have you started putting like a mood board together or like a picture board of kind of what you want to accomplish, or put your dreams
Nope.
out there
There's
that maybe
there's
somebody
things
in the audience maybe can help with?
there's things floating in my head, but I don't know like what direction to take it.
Yeah.
Like I want the worm to blow up, but also like I'm just starting to like really more so consider business stuff.
Mm.
I've been really into like Gary Vee. I know you listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know like what
He's
to
been a
do with it.
he's been a big help. I know he does a lot of talking about creative and business, right? Um, And I mean, are you just not into the business side of it? You just love the art side of it so much that you just don't even want to bother, or you just feel like I'm not good at it, I don't know it? Or does it, I mean, when I look at business, it's kind of like that's my air, that's my oxygen, it's just how normally I operate. The creative side to me is what cripples me. So are you, like, which side do you fall on?
I guess it's like putting a value on my artwork,
Mm.
but also knowing I need to ask, and I do. But it's like, how do I build my audience to make it become a bigger brand,
Mm.
more known? Like, that's why I don't mind going and spray painting worms, because if someone sees one somewhere, they might like the character, follow me. Like, I'm just not sure how to get where I want to be
Yeah,
yet.
100%. And I think, yeah, I mean, I found you just like that, and now you're on my podcast with 11 people. So all you have to do is find somebody with a way bigger audience to be on their podcast, and away you go.
Yeah, maybe. And just
But
trying to figure out like what people want from
yeah,
this character, what kind of merchandise, or
it's we have that in common. I think the question that I ask myself too a lot of the times is, how do I get the worm to blow up? And one of the things that, as I've been following your content, has kind of like opened up for me, has been that, well, it's not about me opening up or me branding the worm or me exploding the worm. It's kind of like, what if the worm is an ecosystem? Like, what if there's like a community of people that are all kind of enrolled in the same vision of the worm, and then that in itself spawns into different things. Because you think about it, like the universal, like, meaning, my redefinition of the worm is a universal thing where it's turning shit into beauty. To oversimplify it, that can be applied to everything. That could be applied to healthcare, that could be applied to technology, that could be applied to mental health, that could be applied to, like you were talking about before, sobriety, for other people. It's kind of like, i just I think about it that way. And when I start to think about what does that actually look like in the physical world, then I could start to, hey, okay, how do I map this out? What does this look like? And I don't think the answers come from me. I think they come from conversations like this. I think just kind of talking about it, saying it out loud, thinking out loud, for me has always been a very valuable thing, because I live up here a lot of the time.
yep.
So that's why, even in one of my latest posts, I just said, look, I'm a motor mouth who literally interrupts, talks, rants, pauses, stutters, but I do it because I need to get my thoughts out. And I know that the reaction coming from the other person is going to be super valuable to me. And that's kind of like the most generous thing, is that feedback loop, and the conversations that I have with people. And it's like, well, why can't that be the worm? Like, why can't it all just be the worm? Because, that's something that would be considered a flaw or a vulnerability, that at the end of it comes out as something beautiful that can help other people, which is kind of the foundation of this podcast. It's sharing stories, it's having conversations that other people can either, like, uh, get validation through, get inspiration from, get some sort of different perspective on something that they can help apply. And I think the worm is a really good vehicle for that. That's my rant. I try not to rant about worms, but it just happens normally. Like,
Question.
go ahead.
Do you listen to Beautiful Anonymous?
No, is that a podcast or is that a movie?
Yeah, Chris Gethard. You like, that's all it is just 1 hour phone calls with strangers, and they talk about whatever. Sometimes they get super deep, sometimes it's fun and silly. I recommend you listen to it because I feel like you're the mix between like Gary Vaynerchuk and Chris Gethard.
Oh, that's the biggest compliment I've ever gotten in my life.
And those are my two favorite people right now, and check them out. Yeah,
I will. Beautiful Anonymous. I'm gonna look them up after this, and then I'll.
I kind of recommend going back from the beginning and working your way forward if you've got the time. But
I'm all about Q&A. I read the Gary V Q&A book, and I was like, oh my god, this is a book that I don't fall asleep after 3 chapters on. I like have when I read, I have this weird like narcolepsy. I just fall asleep. It's the perfect way to put me to sleep is for me to read. So the audio or just reading question answer has been super valuable to me. So yeah, I'll check it out, dude. Thank you. And thank you.
Yeah.
Compliment more people. People. You know, because it's like I love it. I mean, I love just talking to people that I'm a fan of their artwork and see how they think about it. And you're kind of one of those people, you know, and it's to hear your perspective on the worm is super cool, right? I think that I don't know. That's just how I think about it. All right, so let's hop into something else, and then let's hop to the question because I'll put you on the spot. I'll put you on the spot at the end of this. No, I love it, dude. I'm down for the journey. I can't wait to see what happens like down the road too. And like, please, like, let's stay friends. If there's ever anything I can help with, please just let me know. Like, I'm gonna put up. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy some of the mugs, and then I'm gonna send them to people who like, you know, we'll do some sort of contest on IG or whatever, and we'll give away the mugs and stuff like that to get more people to like post their worm mugs because I think that's
awesome.
amazing.
I appreciate that. I can send out some fun care packages.
Nice, thank you.
For sure.
Okay, cool. So let's hop into it. So the way that I end this podcast every time is with a question, and it's called fill in the blank for a reason. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then you can think about it and then answer the 2 blanks. So it's discovering the blank in you by listening to the blank in them. I'll give you a few to think about it, but
listening to the worm in you to discover the love in them.
Ooh, wow.
Worm love.
I'm loving it, dude. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Anytime,
and like, I'm so like honored that I was your first podcast. And I think
sorry, I've been so nervous and beating around the bush since you asked.
Don't worry, you're not the only one. I'm not gonna shout out other people, but you're not the only one. Don't worry. No, thank you for real. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for doing this. Let's definitely connect more. And I'll be hitting you up about those mugs. And then 3, 2, 1.